Hello, I'm Jennifer Coons, one of the reference librarians at the Haverford Township Free Library, and welcome to the June 1st edition of Reading with Reference. I thought I should preface this book review with a disclaimer, basically acknowledging that I started reading the book I'm about to talk about last week, so that is before the events of the past weekend unfolded. I mention this because said book is funny and delightful, and I found little of what was occurring over the past 3 days funny or delightful. Now, I'm not suggesting that my reading choices should necessarily reflect local and national affairs, but somehow I felt the need to address what might have come across as a disconcerting juxtaposition. So with that in mind, may I present Here for It by R. Eric Thomas. I love it when I come across a writer, particularly if it's someone I've never heard of, who brings me joy. I found a joy bringer in R. Eric Thomas. His book, Here for It, is a collection of essays that essentially coalesce into a memoir. And in particular, it highlights the author's young adulthood as he tries to navigate through a world where he never fully feels a part. He writes, "I have always been Black in a white environment, not Black enough in a Black environment, working class in an upper class environment, Christian in a secular environment, questioning in a devout environment, gay in a straight environment, never quite right." Besides the fact that this book is hilarious, like the people in my house kept asking me what I was laughing at, kind of hilarious. I'm also a sucker for any writer who mentions how books, particularly through their local library, have helped them get through a rough patch. On feeling like an outsider, the author writes, "But through it all, there was a constant tethering me to the idea of a future, the library. In the book stacks, I found The Bluest Eye, The Color Purple, and Giovanni's Room, and David Rakoff's Fraud, and more. I saw a new vision of otherness in those books, and the pages kept turning. Every story, whether truth or fiction, is an invitation to imagination, but even more so, it's an invitation to empathy. The storyteller says, 'I am here. Does it matter?' The words that I found in these books were a person calling out from a page, 'I am worthy of being heard, and you are worthy of hearing my story.' And we're also worthy of hearing somebody practice the double bass in my house. But I digress. So this book covers a variety of subjects, including the author's hair. It's bad, or was bad, because he is currently bald. His relationship with the church of his youth, the first time he was ever called the N-word, and a moving tribute to a high school crush. I think one of the things I loved about the book is that while it manages to address some pretty deep issues, both personal and existential, the author manages to continually interweave this element of humor into everything because it seems he can't help it. Mr. Thomas actually lives in Philadelphia and makes his living doing a number of things, including hosting the Moth podcast, and also, as he puts it, making fun of politics online for money. He actually writes a column called Eric Reads the News for L.com. He concedes that comedy plus internet equals trash fire, and he says that one of his goals is to not add more trash to that fire. At another point in the book, he writes something along the lines of, "If I'm going to try to make people laugh on the internet, I may as well also try to make them happy." And this is where the joy bringer thing comes in. He just made me happy. Like as I was reading this book, I just felt I was smiling. Sometimes I was laughing out loud and just felt happy, unbelievably so, considering some of the things that are going on in the world today. So this pretty much sums up his brand of humor. He somehow manages to do that. And he manages to make fun of the news without being mean-spirited or nasty. So I highly recommend this book for folks who are looking for some buoyancy and cheer along with their cultural commentary, incisive cultural commentary. And I both read the text and also listened to the audiobook, and I really enjoy doing both. I think it's worth doing both. If you listen, you can hear the author read his own words. He's a very engaging reader and storyteller. Given his experience at the Moth, And also he's just extremely funny to listen to. But reading it on the page is also really funny. So I enjoyed toggling back and forth between two. The other thing that was really cool about that was I was able to internalize the author's literal voice. So when I opened up the page, I could hear his voice reading the words. So I think that's all. You can get this book on Libby. I will be returning it very shortly, so it will be available for you, at least on audio. I know it's available. And that is my review for this week. Here for It by R. Eric Thomas. Have a great week. Stay safe, stay well, and I look forward to seeing you next week.